Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Science of Fitness podcast. I'm here today with Nicole Gibson from MeasureUp. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Very excited to have you on, and going to be a little bit of a different episode. You've got quite an interesting professional background, and then more so, you're here representing MeasureUp, which is, from what I've seen, probably at the cutting edge in terms of this whole longevity side of things. It's really the foundation of what we need to understand. So, very briefly, tell us about MeasureUp, what MeasureUp does, and then we'll go into the details of you and MeasureUp and your whole story.
Yeah, of course. So MeasureUp started in Sydney. There's a flagship lab in Sydney, so it does scientific testing for performance health. So Sydney lab's been open for a long time, and then Brisbane has recently opened a year ago. So the MeasureUp side is one component of MeasureUp. We also have the bone bus side, which is a mobile density lab, which services all around the country doing bone mineral density. So quality improvement activities for general practice and those in that space.
Yeah, wow. The bone bus.
The bone bus.
I love that. That's it's like sort of exciting. It's the modern day ice cream truck, maybe. Let's sort of go to you, and then we'll come back to MeasureUp, because I think for anyone listening to this, most of our listeners are really quite intrigued on the science and the evidence base. I guess tools around exercise, health, performance, and longevity. But let's talk about you. So your background, your entry point, how did you find yourself working in the world of health measurement and MeasureUp? And let's dive into the career history.
Well, I suppose for the last 5.5 years, apart from this year, I've worked in the osteoporosis education space. So I've actually partnered with MeasureUp to provide that education. We sort of had similar clients, sort of tackling it from a different perspective. So I've worked alongside them for many years, and start of this year I've actually joined them. So I work directly for them now. Nice. Really supporting in the MeasureUp side, supporting the clients who are interested in longevity and health performance, and sort of my role there is to sort of discuss and assess their goals, and then I sort of can help guide them to where they need to be and what sort of testing. But back to my employment. So just that health and fitness really aligns with me personally. So being able to, preventative health, I find is certainly the key, and bringing awareness to the likes of yourself and your company and those who your members. This is such an area, a fairly new area on the scene, and it's going to be really crucial for reducing chronic disease and just improving longevity.
Has that passion come from working as a nurse in a clinical setting for a long time and seeing these poor people suffering diseases, sickness, illnesses at that stage where it's almost too late and wish we prevented earlier?
Well, so the preventative health in my previous role obviously more looked at primary care landscape, so general practice, and we looked at our sort of target group were those over 70 who were at risk of fracture. So identifying those patients, getting them scanned, with the bone bus, flagging if they've got weak bones or not is really crucial, because we know that these things can be prevented. I can't look at you and go, hey, you've got strong bones, because it would be great if we could, but we can't. Yeah. So a lot of people are, I say, ticking time bombs out in the community because they don't know that they've got weak bones. So being able to bring awareness, get them scanned, and sort of prevent them from having a major osteoporotic fracture, which in turn, like if we know if someone breaks their hip, 25% of those patients will die in the first 12 months. 50% will need some sort of long-term mobility device, and 18% will look at needing some sort of aged care facility. So you think their independence and their quality of life, their longevity is dramatically changed. And so that's really what
And that's soon as a sort of a hip fracture happens.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
And
so
is that just a general fracture, or it's a pretty large?
that's looking at a hip fracture.
Yeah. And that's femoral head sort of fracture.
Yep.
Wow. And
So we're talking about
just
prevention.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and that's one component of, I suppose,
big picture.
of a big picture. And we know, I know it's probably gone up now, but it used to be something like $36,000. If you're looking at the financial aspects of, them going to the hospital, having their surgery, their rehab, but then you're looking at their rehousing, the whole
Yeah.
their
The
lifestyle
wash-up changes
and
on a dime.
Yeah, exactly. So I think thinking of that sort of preventative health, but bringing it down to our labs, our MeasureUp labs, so many people could benefit from understanding what's happening inside.
Totally.
And doing it early,
Yeah.
rather before you get to later on, or before the reversal is a lot harder.
Exactly. Yeah. Staying on the bone sort of side of things, and that 5 years where you're working particularly on osteoporosis, what are kind of the major factors? So one, obviously, you're looking at the density in the scan and on the bone bus, and getting people scanned and getting that understanding. What else are sort of the lifestyle factors in and around bone health or preventative measures from falls risk? They probably go hand in hand. If you're doing the right things to mitigate falls risk, it's probably going to have an influence on your bone health.
Well, according to the RACGP guidelines, which is what a lot of the health professionals sort of the guidelines to manage osteoporosis, it's yes, you're looking at their bone density, so managing that. You're looking at their vitamin D, their calcium intake, so their oral supplementation. Are they getting, enough sunlight, in the summer, or you don't want to get sunburn in Queensland, but you're looking at falls risks, their footwear, many times in clinic you'd see them with unsteady, shoes, and I'm saying, could you wear nice solid sneakers next time you come to see me? Because they are a falls risk. So reducing that risk of them falling and fracturing, because we know their quality of life, their morbidity, it's a ripple effect.
Capitulates. And unfortunately, it's this sounds rather morbid. It's not like you might fall and die there and then. It's going to be fall, and it's a longitudinal suffering for a long period of time. It's not, compared to sort of other health-related issues, it's one of those ones that probably as a wash-up you end up suffering for a long time.
And I think with we're talking about the bone bus, and yes, we the Medicare have screening parameters where they're eligible under Medicare for a rebated scan, and it's sadly it's a lot. It's 70 once you turn 70 you can have one, and then depending on the results you can have a repeat scan every 2 or 5 years. So which is great. However, MeasureUp, if we could empower your members here, the public, let's have a close look at what's happening inside now. Let's not wait.
I was going to say, if you were to make the rules and say this is now rebatable, what would you say? How old would someone be?
If we can even look at your your visceral fat, if we can reduce cardiovascular disease, your diabetes, honestly, the
list
amount
is
of
endless, right?
the amount of money that goes into hospitals, taking up beds for for fractures and things like that. If we could prevent and
mitigate those issues before they are too late. Putting pressure on the healthcare system, right? Yeah.
So longevity, I suppose that's where it's preventative health, empowering the clients to understand their body better, and giving them the tools to go, hey, this is what works and this is what doesn't work.
Staying on that, because obviously you're scanning, getting a whole lot of information to people, and it can almost come as a hindrance when someone gets a bone scan or a DEXA scan and their data doesn't look that great, and they're on weird ends of the spectrum of the norms, and they get a bit stressed and sort of frightened. From a nursing background, how do you go sort of communicating that information and obviously providing, I guess, a bit of hope or a bit of encouragement for someone? Because just because the scan says something, it's like, this is great information, we can go and mitigate. It's almost positive information as opposed to, wait till you get injured. The suffering happens.
So if we're looking, for example, with bone mineral density and, as I said about the aging population, some people may be diagnosed with osteopenia. So they're not at osteoporotic, but they do have slightly weaker bones than they used to. And yes, they are at risk. However, you can get the wheels in motion. And I talk about the wheels in motion because the management of osteoporosis is just not pharmacotherapy.
Yeah.
You know, it's lifestyle. It's eating the right foods, the supplements.
Yeah.
It's as I said, making sure you've got the right quality glasses that you can see, that you're not tripping over things, the footwear,
that's simple.
that you're, the home OT community
program
come out to
yeah.
make sure that rug is, that's
Not
going to
a
be a
risk.
false risk. So getting the wheels in motion. So when they do start, if they do have their routine scan in 2 years, if they do sort of slip into the next category, and they can just start their pharmacotherapy. Everything else is in motion, and often we can just keep them at bay.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's very
So
interesting.
strength training,
I was going to say,
resistance training. Yeah.
What are the main ones that can help mitigate? Say there's a slight decline observed data-wise, like on the scan. What are the main ones? Obviously, you said strength and resistance training. I think a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a lot of the elderly population, if we're looking at that particular example, would say, I'd say, what sort of exercise do you do? And they say, I look after the grandkids, 3 days a week. I get a lot of exercise. I go, do you know what? That's really great for your heart health. But what are we doing? And they go, I cycle, I ride. Once again, really great for your heart health. But what's really impacting on your bones? And so when I sort of give examples of, strength training, resistance training, walking upstairs, dancing, tennis, all of those shifting the weight, that's what we're talking about that will have, the most impact. And that's the sort of the exercise, you need to do to, no matter what age, to ensure longevity and strengthening your bones.
And strong bones, right? They need to be put under a degree of stress to promote the adaptation.
Yeah.
Pretty simple, right? In terms of like standout client stories, I'm sure you'd have a heap, but does anything come to mind in terms of how valuable it is for someone to get this information and to act as that catalyst to generate those lifestyle changes?
Well, I know I had a practice manager when we're looking at bone mineral density, and she got tested because, her husband owned the practice. And she came back and, surprise to her, she came back with minus 3.5. So for those following along, osteoporosis is 2.5 standard deviations. So minus 2.5, 2.5 standard deviations away from, the average normal bone health of a 30-year-old, right?
Yep.
So she was minus 3.5 and she thought her life was over. And I said, what it means is about it now. It's doing risk assessments. So should I climb up on the ladder, and get on the roof and to, fix the gutter or something?
Yeah.
Or should I get home help in? Should I wait for the neighbour to come home or the kids or whoever?
Yeah.
So risk assessments to not put yourself in that risk of fracture, because we do know once they fracture once, then they're at risk of fracturing again.
Yeah. Okay. I like that word risk, and it's something that I like to sort of refer to in here when training and working with people. Is the gym and a strength training environment is a nice, generally, particularly if you're doing it under supervision with a professional, it's a controlled environment and you can mitigate for risk. And so if you have been identified to be at bone risk, well, let's actually mitigate for that. And so, we're not going to have those higher risk trip, like, running out on the pavement or whatever else it might be. We can control for that. It's all those little things which really do go a long way. And then, as you're saying, the awareness is, well, in the less controlled environment, maybe I won't take the risk of climbing on the roof and trying to clear out the gutters, and someone else can do that kind of thing.
And I think you spoke about numbers, and what do the results mean? And when clients come into the lab and we have a DEXA there, which does bone mineral density or it does body composition DEXA, and we talk about preventative health, longevity. You're looking at that body composition DEXA. I would recommend to everyone, absolutely everyone.
No matter what age.
Look, what age are your members here at the gym?
Sort of range from 25 to the oldest is mid 70s,
Perfect.
late 70s.
Absolutely perfect. They would be most suitable to getting a check-in, understanding what's happening inside. And yes, Dan, our exercise physiologist at the gym, it's his responsibility he does the scan, and he will go through the result. The scan takes like less than 3 minutes. And so imagine having that information in under 3 minutes, that could be life-changing and can put you on a path, a good health path or whatever your goals are. And so he will get that information. He will share it with you. So the goal for us at MeasureUp is to empower the client to understand their body better, to understand what do these results mean? How can they interpret these results? How can they then go, okay, this is what's worked for me. This is what didn't work.
Yeah.
And it's not, yes, we always recommend that use these results, have an understanding, but in conjunction with their own health professional, so like yourself, your team here, together they can then put a strategic plan together and for a program.
Yeah, and to actually, have something as a reference guide of here's your start, and then we go. It's such an important part of it, and there's so much evidence from a behavior change, lifestyle change, social science of, if people measure regularly, they tend to adhere to whatever it is that they're doing, from finance and saving money and hitting goals and investment portfolios right through to people trying to lose weight. If you get on the scale every day, you're more likely to generate more behaviors that generate an outcome because it's top of the mind. And so we love our numbers. We do a bunch of biomechanical movement testing in here and strength and balance and all sorts of things. And those numbers are really core to us knowing whether what we're doing works.
Yeah, it keeps you accountable, and
Keeps us accountable.
This is exactly what
accountable.
I say to the clients when I have a chat to them. It keeps your trainer, your dietitian, your EP. It makes them be more focused and specific to the individual goals of this particular person, and we try not to get too focused on, yes, there's lots of numbers. However, it's about being consistent with their training program. Yeah. And,
totally.
Whether it's a daily, like you said, a daily, being consistent daily, consistent weekly, it may be, don't get caught up on what the scales say, but, are they eating more fruits and veggies, a variety of fruits and veggies that, they've never tried before, and they're feeling good about that.
Yeah.
So it's, if they can see improvements with their fitness, with, when they come to repeat their scan, again, they can compare. Dan will sit down and compare from 6 months ago or 3 months ago, 12 months ago to where you are. What has worked? Tell us about what hasn't worked for you.
Yeah. And you can set up your focuses. I think a lot of people come in here starting training for the first time. They go, I want to get fitter. I want my this, I want my that. I'm like, okay, slow down. Let's do one thing at a time. Giving them a number, giving them let's look at just an entire DEXA scan, bone, muscle, body fat, etc. Number one priority for me with anyone is strength and movement, and it's building a robust system. So can you train and have a system that can handle or tolerate a lot of work? I don't really care about the cardio side of things first. The amount of people that go and try and get cardio fit have never done any strength, don't have the strength to handle it, end up hurting themselves, drop off.
Well, it's got to be achievable.
Got to be achievable, right? And so it's like, let's get a DEXA scan just to add to that of, look, you've strength trained for 3 months. You've built muscle.
And we can see that.
Seen some actual change, yeah.
And we have on the body composition DEXA, Dan goes through, like, it's coloured. You can see, like, the red orange is the lean muscle. Yeah. The yellow is the subcutaneous fat. And, we've all got around our hips, our legs, and then, we look at the symmetry of the long limbs, so the arms and the legs. And often, I've had speaking to clients saying, and they've said, oh, I've had an injury, I've been off for, in rehab and they're obviously going to have some muscle wastage on that particular limb. So on a scan, that shows that. And then when they may have done their 12-week rehab or 6 months and they're checking in again, they can see that improvement. They've done the resistance training on that particular limb and they're building that muscle up. It's a visual thing. So we're not looking at what the kilos say on the scale,
Yeah.
where it's a big picture.
And we know now, right, that the mass, the weight, it's a lot less relevant as opposed to the split of muscle mass, bone density, water mass, body fat, and so forth, it makes a ton of sense to do this. Where does the resting metabolic rate testing fit in? And even before you answer that question, explain what that is first and foremost to people that probably don't know.
So the resting metabolic rate. So for you to sit here and breathe and function, you're needing a minimum amount of energy for life, and that's what they measure. So the amount of energy that is required to function,
Just to be alive.
To be alive, and
Okay.
so with that, a lot of I find a lot of athletes, say triathletes, often wanting that particular edge, because looking at your macros,
Okay.
and we always make sure that they haven't run 10K before they come in. So it's normally done in the morning, well rested, and you're really assessing your body's how much energy it's using at, just breathing and lying there at rest.
Okay.
Just functioning. And so with that, look, obviously Dan, when they come in, the EP goes through, it can explain in a lot further details and the results and how they can help with your training, and your eating and the nutritionist, eating patterns, training patterns.
Yeah, because it's such a concept that a lot of people struggle to fathom.
Yep.
Is they think, oh, my Apple Watch or my Whoop said I burnt, 150 calories on that workout. That's not nearly enough. I have half a Snickers and it's most, and they sort of get so caught up in this caloric thing. One, the metrics on those wearables are very grey. They're not very accurate. But two, the shift in your metabolism post being physically active is going to be, influential. And that's going to then, obviously, even as you said, you don't let athletes do an activity and then measure their resting metabolic rate because it's going to be different.
It's going to,
be burning like a furnace.
Skew the result.
But yeah, understanding that base level, you're burning energy. And I think it's something that a lot of people, when they get into training or if they are training a lot, they misinterpret the fact that naturally you're going to be burning a lot of energy. And that's 3 meals a day may not be enough food just for your resting
How
metabolic
can you
rate,
fuel your body better?
let alone your training.
And once again, it comes back to our motto: understand your body better.
Yeah, wow.
And that's with the and we do the VO2 max there as well. Dan does that, and we have both the bike and the treadmill. And so some people have, I've had clients in tears in the office because they've had an illness, and they haven't been able to do the exercise they want to do, and they want to just, from day dot, they want to improve. They want to get better. They want to make changes, and so they actually will jump on, and even though they're unfit, they jump on, and that's the perfect time to get that baseline.
Okay.
I think a lot of people think, oh, I need to be a professional athlete to come to the lab, to
ask those questions,
to have these questions, to have these tests done.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's probably one of the biggest myths is you don't have to be a professional athlete. You can be anyone.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't matter about fitness levels.
And that's the other. I was going to say that's the other myth is some people think, oh, I'll come and get that scan, or I'll come and do that test when I'm a bit fitter.
Yeah.
Well, no, let's get a baseline, because then in 6 months' time or 3 months, whatever the interval you would like to measure, we can accurately repeat that test, and Dan will go, hey, this is where we're at. Look at that improvement.
Way more rewarding, way more incentivizing. It's so funny. The amount of people that say I need to get fitter before I come to the gym, I'm like, how do you plan on doing that? It's the very place to get fitter. But in getting that understanding, that baseline is so important. It's really motivational, I think, for a lot of people. I've seen it work a ton of times. And then the other end of the spectrum of those that are really well trained and are really, they're either breaking a lot with lots of niggles or little injuries. And then second to that, the ones that are well trained but not getting anywhere. And
you
90% of the time they're under fuel.
And you speak about the injuries. I don't know. We speak about, on the body composition DEXA, we look at the symmetry of the long limbs. So if people have had injuries, you've got your differences in your lean muscle mass, that can affect your gait.
Totally.
That can affect, if they're a runner, they could be putting more emphasis on,
one hip or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then therefore they're getting, repetitive injuries and they're thinking, why?
Yeah.
And you think if they had a scan, we could identified, Dan would have flagged that, hey, this is something to be mindful of. There is a little bit out of the normal parameters. Obviously, if you're right-handed or you're left-handed, you're going to have a little bit of difference, have a little bit more muscle mass on that right arm or left arm.
Yeah.
But there is a parameter, and that's where they can have those conversations and say, let's
control for that.
Yeah.
And go into mitigate, and it's so easy to do. There's so many, good professionals, trainers and that sort of thing out there that can just go, oh, yep, that's easy to do. Here's the change we'll make in the program. See it in 12 weeks and sure enough. So in terms of accuracy and standards, in your experience, what sort of separates a good DEXA VO2 resting metabolic rate from a bad one?
Yeah, so it's with us at MeasureUp, we have quality and experience. So we always make sure that we have industry standard machinery, and also we team that up with our technicians and our EPs who not only have degrees in those fields, but they have experience and working in this sort of measuring, scientific measuring.
And it's funny because you can go to a radiology clinic and they're generally spending more time on the heavy radiology equipment to turn around and quickly use a DEXA that they may not be familiar with. Sometimes
so the DEXA, for those listening along at home, it's a dual energy X-ray absorptiometry. So you think of the dual, it's got two purposes. So it looks at both the soft tissue and the hard. So we can look at the bones, and then we can look at the lean muscle mass as well. So, but obviously the bone mineral density, it's done on the same machine as the body composition. For the body composition DEXA does not need a referral in Queensland. You can just
walk in.
You can,
Oh, wow.
Obviously ring up would be easier or make a booking online, but you can walk in maybe. But for the bone mineral density, you do need a referral from your GP. But with the body composition DEXA, we do a focus area on the lumbar spine. So it will give you an indication of your bone density. And once again, Dan will flag that with you if it's outside parameters and say, look, our recommendations, given these results, we would recommend you see your GP to get a referral and then come back and we can do a different type of scan.
Actually do a different type of scan. Yeah, okay, that makes a ton of sense. In terms of like insights and trends, obviously we've discussed how it's actually people are aware of what DEXA is. 5 years ago, probably maybe a third of the population would have even maybe have heard of a DEXA.
There's still a lot of work to be done.
It's not. We know what it is. Are you actually getting one now? That's probably the next point. But, for those that are considering their first test, DEXA VO2, how do you sort of define a reputable provider? Because there's also that realm of easily accessible magnetic-based scanners and all these ones, and I've been on them, and the quality and, to speak scientifically, the reliability and the validity seems way out. You can get different results on the same day.
Exactly.
On your body mass, your muscle mass, your bone density, whatever it might be. So, if you're sort of speaking to someone that's really thinking about it, doesn't know where to start, and needs to get good quality, what are you sort of saying?
Well, like at MeasureUp, it's like the machinery we have is the gold standard. So it's the top of the range machinery. So
and how much of a range is there in the DEXA scanner particularly?
There's different brands. So we have a Hologic machine.
Okay.
And like you were saying, of those that you've tried before and, that you hold on. They will give you an indication. They'll give you like a trend. Yep. But if you were to hop on that 15 minutes later, the next day it could be chalk and cheese. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And you spoke about repeatability. Yeah. So we have, when we repeat our scans, we try to have like the client prepare their body the same way, so it's at a constant state, so we can have the most accurate data that Dan can compare from the previous scan. So that may mean for a body composition DEXA, say like going to the toilet before they hop on, not drinking excessive amounts of water prior, not doing not going for a 10K run that morning, not drinking alcohol in 12 hours prior. Just trying to keep it as neutral and even the foods they eat, just keeping that basic consistency to compare. And that's when you're really going to be able to have those accurate comparisons.
Makes a ton of sense. And then from a resting metabolic rate perspective, I suppose just to give us a bit of an image before I sort of ask the question, what does that actually look like? How does that done? Is it a mask on someone's face and that's it, or how does it work?
Yeah, we've got actually, if you go to our website, MeasureUp.com.au, you can click on the Brisbane link, but there's all like there's little videos of the body composition DEXA, the VO2 max, the resting metabolic rate. But for those imagining what it looks like at home, you're actually lying on the DEXA, which is our sort of surface,
clinical
bed.
surface.
And they have a big sort of they have a mask on and like a plastic, so they're encapsulated.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it's like a space suit.
Yeah, it's like a space suit.
Cool.
And so we try to put them in as like turn the lights off, some calming Zen music. Sort of calming music.
Yeah.
So it's sort of really trying to
control the environment.
Control the environment.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so, if you're looking at how am I going to get the best results, doing it not after a hard day's work.
Yeah, repeatable, reliable, consistent.
Doing it, in the morning.
Yeah, totally. Okay. How long did they have to lie there?
The whole thing, like from, it's half an hour, not the test, but from
start to finish, setting it all up.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Very interesting. And do you have people like come in and they go, DEXA, resting metabolic rate, and the VO2 all in one?
Yes, we have different packages that, depending on their goals, and that's where I sort of have these conversations and you go, look, do you know what, what you're telling me, you would really benefit from having the body composition DEXA and the VO2 max. We do have a longevity package, which is the VO2 max, the body composition DEXA, and grip strength. So, it really
do a bit of a suite of.
It really depends, but I think a lot of people who they may have a conversation, and a lot of people have this is, I want to lose weight. You might hear it all. That's why I'm going to the gym. They may not have a set goal, or they might not say, hey, I'm training for this marathon, or I'm doing this. And
what percentage split is that? It's just general health, and then it's an actual athlete going, I want to do this performance thing, whatever it might be.
Well, and as I said, that was one of the myths I find, that people think these labs and that accessible to everyone, they're not just for athletes, they're for everyone. And when, I think a lot of people who go, do you know what, I want to make a difference and change my trajectory of my health, they come. And I think more and more people are the everyday person who goes to the gym, they're not running marathons every 6 months. And I think that's a really good starting point. That's what I would recommend is let's get a baseline. How do we get a baseline? Let's just do a body composition DEXA, and then we can build from there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Absolutely. How do you help people that tend to get fixated on numbers, that tend to get a little bit too hung up on the number? Like, what do you sort of say to them?
Well, we always say it's not about the numbers, and obviously it's our job, once again, to explain to them, give them that, empower them with the knowledge, what they're looking at, and how consistency with changes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's never about the scales.
Did I get a good test today? Do I come back next week? I might get a better score.
Yeah,
it's not about that at all, right? It sort of defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah, and the people, and once Dan has those conversations, they really do understand. And yes, there's lots of data that we provide them that they take away with them. But that's where, you know, they have their support systems, their PTs, their EPs, their, you know,
And the GPs, anything with a
GPs,
P. Yeah.
anything with a P, their dietitians, like the whole allied health team.
Yeah.
You know, depending on what their goal is, someone will be able to continue supporting them and guiding them, because it's about targets, and those numbers are all about targets. Are you in that, you know, for that someone your age, are you in the right target? Or do you know what? You probably need to build a little bit more lean muscle, because down the track, you know, that could affect, you know,
everything,
bone density.
Metabolic health and so forth.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. It's pretty interesting to sort of consider, you know, I guess we've been sold down the river, particularly in my industry, in health and fitness. If you don't look a certain way, then you're not it, and then you're not healthy. And if someone looks fit and they've got veins and muscles and they're ripped, and it's like, oh, they're healthy. But there's so much more to it. And I think when people can start to think in this realm of, you know, get a DEXA scan, look at your bone density, look at your muscle mass, you may look at yourself and think, oh, I don't look that healthy, but you go and get this information and realize, oh, no, I'm actually probably in a pretty good position. A few little tweaks here and there, balancing it, bit of food, nutrition, or whatever it might be, it's going to go a long way. And
we give an estimate for visceral fat, so the fat around your organs, and it's just a bit of a guide, and you know that can be really impacting on someone who is thinking, do you know what, I've got a family history of, you know, cardiovascular, diabetes, you know, like, you know, it sort of hits home, and that's something where they can then move forward and go, look, I want to stop this.
Yeah.
You know, I want to change my trajectory, you know, longevity. And that it's longevity. We talk about longevity all the time, and I'm sure you guys do that at the gym here too. But it is so true. And I think it's a social word that is so empowering, and it's just like, it's just awareness.
Totally right. And I think it's so important, because it's another buzzword. I've seen it happen. Functional was the buzzword when I started in the industry. Oh, it's functional training, functional this, functional. And it's like, hang on, definitively, what does that mean? Now, the other one is my hormones and balancing my hormones. It's like, can you name 4 hormones? Like, where does this actually fit into action, execution, result? Like, what does longevity look like? And I think this is really where it starts.
It's a starting point.
If you want to say I'm considering or training or working on my longevity, well, where does it come to? We know your muscle mass is a critical determining factor of your overall longevity health. We know your VO2 max is probably the number one indicator of how long you're going to live for and how well you're going to live.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you've actually got tangible information, as opposed to, oh, I'm doing a little bit more zone 2 walking for my longevity. It's like, yeah, but is it enough? Is it working? What's your baseline? Do I even know? You could be wasting your time.
I would love, like, honestly, once people, I find it fascinating, and we have a lot of, you know, people come in and, you know, and I share this journey with them, from talking to them on the phone, and if I'm in the lab, I'll support them as well. And it's just absolutely fascinating to see their faces when Dan shares their results. Hey, this is where you're at. Hey, you're not too bad, you know, and like he'll give a summary, and you know what? And he gives recommendations, the recommendation may be, do you know what, you would benefit from, you know, adding 3 kilos of lean muscle, you know?
Yeah, wow. I need to get heavier?
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then in order to do that, there's a recommendation of, you know, how many grams of protein, you know, to really support these goals.
Yeah.
And they go, wow, you know, and it's, as I said, it's never about what's on the scales.
Totally right. Yeah.
And to see them going, hey, I've got a plan, and then, you know, then they've got their support system, like at the gym here, or you know, they utilize everyone in their sort of in their tribe to get those goals, because you can't do it by yourself. Yeah.
What does it mean if I've done all this walking, I've done my zone 2, did it work? Don't know. And then why stick at it? What's that going to motivate you for?
And then when we say, look, you come back, you know, come back and see, and when they physically can see body shape changes in colour, they just go, Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
What percentage of people have retested in the last 12 months that you've
Heaps,
seen? Oh, really?
heaps, yeah.
That's exciting.
And we had a client who was fit in his own field of sports, who decided to start cycling and do a charity ride, for example, from I think the top of Queensland all the way down.
Wow.
And so you think in the different sports you're using different muscles. And so he came along and considering he's a muscly,
Athletic, well-trained,
person, chap, yep. And he was really, he was surprised how unfit he was on the bike.
Yeah.
Just
different tolerance, different skills, different mass.
And so now he's obviously in training to increase that so he can do this long ride. So as I said, it doesn't matter what sports and what background you're from. You're all very welcome at MeasureUp.
Yeah, nice. I love it. Fantastic. In the next 5 to 10 years, where do you think our measuring and testing data is going to go from body composition to performance testing? And I guess that sort of drip feed, this stuff's been around. I did my master's in high performance and strength. I finished it nearly 10 years ago now. And it's sort of, we did DEXAs, we talked about VO2 max, but only for athletes. It was not in the gym and in the recreational, healthy person space. Now it is. In the next 5 to 10 years, what do you think is going to happen from a testing and measuring perspective?
Well, I was speaking to one of our owners who pioneered DEXA into the country, Dr. Jared Meakin, and talking to him about it, he was saying how there will be advances in predictability of, like with your smartwatches and things like that, technology will always sort of keep improving. But, there are some like MRIs that have AI components that can, measure, start to interpret, you can really, measure every muscle, 609 muscles in the body and determine, by inch of what's happening there. But I think more awareness will be happening about, I just wish it was mandatory that everyone,
totally right. And
once people know how much goodness, I can't talk about this enough, how much information and how life-changing 1 3-minute scan can be for someone's
overall trajectory of their health.
Like
that's powerful. I mean, it's so true. It's so worth seeing that person that's listening to this and you're 45 and you've never considered yourself healthy and you're a little bit worried about it, maybe you feel a bit embarrassed or shame about it. We can get rid of those associations.
It's a judgment-free area.
It's totally right. And the only person that can manage it and deal with it ultimately is you, and it's not that complicated, and it literally just starts with just lying on a bed for 3 minutes.
And it's you keep your clothes on, it's painless, it's such valuable information, and the whole lab can provide, no matter what path you're on, with your training, it will certainly be value add, and you'll get results.
It kickstarts the process. Yeah, I think that's a strong final message, Nicole. And I think it's just we're in that space. We see it all the time. I'm living this luxury little bubble where everyone I interact with is exercising or moving, and I try and unplug and sort of look at majority of the population that aren't, and they're subject to injury and other health concerns and conditions. And where do we start? Because I can sit and say you should, and they go, I know, but I don't. So where do we start? I think here's the solution.
Perfect solution.
Beautiful. All right, Nicole. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Talk to us a little bit about, you guys have got a website. How do people book in? What does that sort of look like, particularly the Brisbane locals and obviously the New South Wales, Sydney
so you can go on to measureUp.com.au and there's a Brisbane and Sydney office, so you can select which one you'd like to go to. There's lots of information on there that you can learn more about all the testing we do. There's videos, so you can get a really good understanding of what it looks like and learn a little bit more about it. But then you can just book in online and pick a time that suits you. And look, Dan does have some flexibility with his work hours. We know that some people start work later, so he comes in early some days, he finishes late some days, hopefully to accommodate all those listening. And definitely definitely not highly recommend
Yeah.
as a starting point, no matter where you are.
Beautiful. Awesome, Nicole. Well, thank you very much for your time. And I think I better book myself a scan and a full assessment. I'm definitely overdue.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.